Hello everybody and welcome to another Blazblue guide. Tonight we're going to be talking about pressure for beginners. Pressure is something that is very important in anime fighting games, and in Blazblue it's incredibly important and often is a huge difference between a player who has just picked up the game and is first getting into it and someone who's gotten to a more intermediate level who understands how to pressure the opponent. For people who aren't familiar with the concept of pressure, pressure is basically being able to constantly maintain this kind of aggression on an opponent, making sure that if they start mashing buttons or doing something that's unsafe, that you're still, right on top of them, and you're not giving up your turn as easily as you would have otherwise. The simplest way to think about it is if you're putting your opponent into any kind of block string, you are not ending your block string in a way that gives them their turn. So a really good example of this is something I see a lot of new players do early on, is they believe that their pressure, the thing they're supposed to be doing when an opponent starts blocking, is their combo, which is a mistake. So a lot of times with new players, right, they're gonna learn like really basic Ragna combos, right? So you're gonna see stuff like, this into Hell's Fang, right? And beginners know that this is a good combo that they should be doing. They're like, okay, we're gonna do this combo, we're gonna rely on it. Pretty sure I made a video telling you to just learn this combo and rely on it, right? Well, if somebody starts blocking, you can no longer do this combo, and the reason for that is because if you go through the entire thing, this last attack here is incredibly unsafe. You're gonna get punished if you enter combo in this, and at a minimum, even if they don't attack you back right away, you're gonna have to start blocking. You're gonna give up your turn. So the idea behind pressure is that you basically want to use different opportunities in your attacks to reset the start of your block strings or create some sort of opportunity to keep your turn. Now, a lot of pressure resets do come with various ways to beat them and various ways to get around them or to counter them directly, but if you're good at pressure, you're going to do a number of different things so that your opponent always has to be guessing, and now you're playing fighting games and having a good time. So, we're going to talk about some of the easiest ways to pressure in the game, so that you can start trying to pick this up for yourself. So the first thing is, like we just said, your pressure is not your full combos. Don't do your full combo. In Ragna's case, and with a lot of other characters in BlazBlue, you can actually do things where you'll only do a part of the enders. So we know that Ragna's Hell's Fang here has these two parts, and we know that Gauntlet Hades here has two parts as well. So one really easy way to do a pressure reset is to go into that portion after you've conditioned them to expect the second hit, and instead, when you get to here, you can just resume pressure. And if they start pressing buttons here, now you toss out the second hit and you can catch them out. It's not a very good way to do pressure, but that's the basic idea, right? You want to create these points of hesitation for your opponent and mix that into when they start blocking. However, that's not the best way to do it. One of the more reliable ways to do it that is universal to just about every character in the game is jump canceling. So every character has, typically every character has some sort of attack that's jump cancelable. So for Ragnar, he actually has a couple. His 6C, this low starting attack that then goes high, and then also his 3C now. Both of these you can jump cancel afterwards. And the reason that jump canceling is good is because you can use it to move yourself forward. Because as your opponent is blocking your attacks, you're naturally getting moved, back out to the point where things just aren't going to reach anymore. Using one of these, you can use it to jump cancel, and now all of a sudden you're back on top of your opponent, which is where you want to be. So this kind of thing is something that is fairly universal to every character where they have some sort of jump cancelable move. And the thing with this is that it's a really good way to get back in and start your pressure again on block. However, because we are doing a jump cancelable, because we are doing a jump cancel, we know that the opponent can anti-air us, right? If he knows that we're going to do this every single time exactly the same way, Jin can toss in a DP there, or you can toss in, he doesn't really have a, Jin, I think he just jabs with 5A and magically anti-airs everything. But your opponent can anti-air you there if they get a hard read on it. If they know you're going to do it, they can call you out. So this isn't the only way, the only thing that you want to do. with your pressure, but it's definitely one of the easiest to begin incorporating. Okay, so one of the other things is anything that your character has that is plus on block is a good point to reset pressure. Ragna has 2 examples of this. So one is going to be this giant thing. On hit, let me look this up because I was just looking it up. On hit, this thing is yeah, Blood Scythe is +3 on hit, right? So +3 is gonna leave you plus enough in Blazblue to usually toss out a nice big button like 5B. And this move, again, is very susceptible to anti-airs, but if you're starting off at like a beginner level, most people just see this thing coming and start panicking because it just looks ginormous. You can anti-air Ragna out of this, but because he's plus afterwards, he can usually get back in and start doing more stuff. Other examples are things that are loosely plus or give you an opportunity to have an advantage. So for Ragna, one familiar thing you might see is him using Death Spike. So with this move is dash cancelable. So this one's going to be a little bit more difficult than jump cancels. But you can dash cancel this so that the opponent is still coming out of block as you're coming up on top of them. So you can see that Jin returns out of block stun right around the time that we're back into neutral. So this is actually -1 even if you cancel it, if I can do this properly. So usually 5B is going to beat out any stubby buttons. People can DP the follow-up, and they can sometimes jump out of this portion of it if they know that it's coming. But it's another example of where you can apply pressure, where you can close the gap, where you can use one of your character's tools to stay on top of their opponent instead of just doing something like this and like, okay, now we're back at neutral, I'm playing defensive again. So all of your pressure tools, you usually have that option of, you can back off if you want. And you can give them an opportunity to do something. Maybe you've pressured them to the point where now they're going to jump out. You can anti-air them. You can do all sorts of stuff. Let's see. And then typically there's, for a lot of different characters, they have things that are kind of setup-oriented pressure. Ragnar doesn't really have anything like this because he's not a very setup-oriented character. He's more straightforward. But characters like Kokonoe, characters like Rachel, even Jubei has a setup with his fireball. And the idea behind that is you're using one of your other character's tools to keep the opponent blocking so that you can get back in on them. So the idea of keeping the opponent on the defensive one way or the other is the basic way that you want to think about pressure. You don't want to just go through the motions of, okay, I did a bunch of buttons, okay, oh crap, I'm really far away from him now. You want to think about it in terms of like, okay, I want to stay on top of this guy. I want to keep being able to attack as much as I want because he's blocking, and eventually he can't block everything. He can't block everything forever. Oh my goodness, thank you very much for the follow. My speakers were incredibly loud. Let's continue. Let's see. Pulling up my list here of stuff to go over. All right, well, let's recap real quick. So we talked a little bit about jump cancel pressure. So jump cancel pressure, anything that's jump cancelable, you can use to move back in on your opponent. Very important, very easy to do. You can also mix in instant air dashes if you've got the swagger and the skills, which sometimes I screw up because it's not something that I have to do very often. You can also use any moves that are dash cancelable, like Death Spike in Ragna's case. And this is going to vary from character to character. And then you have setup pressure and those kind of things. You also have portions of your combo strings that may not that don't have definitive enders, so you can decide to opt to use the ender that's safe and hope that they're pressing a button, or you can condition them to know that you're going to try to go back into pressure and drop that second hit of the special. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about knockdowns, because one of the things that can be a little confusing in Blazblue is how knockdowns work in this game. One of the things to note is that every character has options, has really strong choices. They've got meaty setups, they've got back roll punishes, they have all these different things for what happens when you knock down your opponent in this game. When you knock down your opponent, it is still your turn. This isn't one of those things where they get away scot-free, right? And so getting a knockdown should be something that you get excited about, because you have an opportunity to use your Oki and maintain pressure on your opponent. So I'm going to demonstrate this with Tsubaki just because I'm most familiar with Tsubaki and the way that her knockdown game works. But the key thing to remember is that when you're first picking up Blazblue, it's very easy to run into situations where it's like, okay, I did a combo, I knocked the guy down, he back techs away and he's gone immediately, or he neutral techs and everything's fine. The main thing that I want to go over is that it is still always your turn when you get a knockdown in some way, shape, or form. Now, some of this is a little bit more complicated, and I don't want to make a whole Oki guide here. But I do want to talk about kind of the basics of everything. So let's see if we can't set some things here for Ragna to do so that we can demonstrate some of this. First up, what we're going to do is we're just going to tell him not to block. And we are going to tell him that we want him to do a quick wake up, right? We're just going to tell him to do a quick wake up, and then we're going to have him do first hit only, right? So we can see it, so that we can see how quickly our attack hits him when he wakes up. Okay. So this is going to end in a knockdown for Tsubaki. Alright, so we can see that as soon as he quick rose, we were already on top of him, right? And the reason for this is because Tsubaki basically has a setup off of her Oki, where if she does 2B immediately, it's going to catch anybody who's on the ground. Now, the beautiful thing is that if we set him to neutral wake up, right? So this is gonna set Ragna to neutral wake up, which means he's just holding down a button and he's gonna flash invulnerability immediately. So now the 2B misses, right? But with Tsubaki, the 2B is meaty, meaning that, or the 2B isn't meaty. What it does is it kind of goes through that invulnerability time, and then she still has frame advantage afterwards with her follow-up. So Ragna literally can't press any button besides something that is frame 1 invincible, like a DP. Right? And so this means that if you're playing against another beginner who likes to wake up and mash buttons, you're going to be able to hit them every single time. And this kind of concept of like, I know my opponent likes to do this kind of tech, this kind of get up, is something that works for every character, and for some of them it's incredibly simple. Tsubaki's is 5B. For a lot of characters, it's mash 2A, right? It's just press 2A a bunch of times. Tsubaki's got one that's just press 5, just press 5A. Just press it on knockdown, you're good. So long as you're right on top of them, you can mash 5A, and it's always going to be meaty every single time. Every character in Blazblue has setups like this. They have something. Some of them are difficult. Some of them are incredibly easy. So if you take advantage of your character Discord and just be like, hey, you know, if they neutral tech, what do I do on, you know, on their neutral tech? People in that character Discord will know what to tell you. Everybody has these kind of setups. Now, if they like to back roll, it's a little different. Back rolls are kind of a little bit more of a hard call out. And at the beginning, once a new player finds back roll, they're going to want to do this all the time, right? Because it lets them get away from people that don't know how to punish it. So Ragna here is going to do a back roll, and what we're going to do is we're going to catch it. And let's try to do this where he's not in the corner so we can demonstrate properly. So usually what you're going to do for neutral tech is not the same as back roll. It's going to be different. For Tsubaki, it's 5B. And no matter what Ragna does, anytime that he back rolls, I can 5B and it's going to hit him. He's got to be a hard knockdown first. I'm so sorry. If he's airborne, he's going to quick tech. Let's show this again one more time. But 6BB is Tsubaki's way to punish back rolls, right? It's gonna work like that every single time, no matter what. If I know he's going to back roll, I can press 6BB, and it's going to catch him, you know, every single time that he does it. It's just part of the game. And many characters, they may not have something that is that simple, but they do have ways to punish back rolls or do things against back rolls. So just know, like, if you are playing against someone, this is kind of similar to, I talked about this, like, there are a lot of people, when I made the approach video, I talked about people who jump up and then dash in, and how those people are really easy to anti-air, and they love approaching like that. It's very similar with people who back roll. If you run into somebody who back rolls often, they're going to keep back rolling until you punish them, because if you don't punish it, they're going to get their turn back, and that's not cool. So just remember that you can keep pressure up on knockdown, and that, you know, the difference between back rolls and neutral tech is a really good place to start. You know, there's obviously like learning about delay tech and other things like that. You can sort out later, but at earlier levels, people are constantly going to be either neutral teching or back rolling. So keep an eye out for that. Definitely a way that you can stay on top of people and do more things. Okay, so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to switch characters. We're going to switch over to Mai, because Mai doesn't have anything on plus, but she is a good character to show off a couple things with. And to kind of do a quick recap of what we've talked about so far and the basics of pressure. I'm going to check Twitch chat real quick. All right, looks like nobody's said anything. That's good. Everybody's just listening up. Thank you, Twitch chat. I love you guys. All right. Okay, so we've talked about a couple of things. We've talked about... Let's go over the recap. So we've talked about easy ways to pressure, and I want to demonstrate how to do that with Mai. Mai does not have anything that is natively plus on blocks, so that just straight isn't an option for her. What she does have is pretty good jump cancels, and she also has a very similar thing to Ragna, where she can decide where to reset the points of her basic block strings. So, but with Mai, it's even crazier, and I want to show this just so that people get a sense of it. So we know, like, the average Mai player does this, right? The average Mai player just picks them up, is gonna do, you know, like 5 CEC, right? They're gonna do this. They're just gonna, okay, I'm gonna go into C buttons, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna lose my turn. Well, the cool thing about Mai is that she has this command movement, where if you do a quarter circle forward, she'll do this little dash. And you can put this in during any of her hits, right? You can put it in and do all sorts of things afterwards. Now, if you end in a special or the third hit of your string with Mai, besides for 5 CCC, because this is cancelable up to like the 8th hit or something like that. If you go beyond it, you can't forward cancel with Mai. But anything in the first 2 hits, the first hit, second hit, you can now dash cancel forward with Mai using her command dash. So what this means is, and why this is awesome, is that people don't know when you're gonna end pressure on them, right? So you can go and do all these things onto somebody, and they can never be sure if a hit is coming or if you're gonna dash forward. Now, if they see the dash or they believe the dash is coming forward, yes, they can jab you out of it. But this kind of pressure with Mai, where you can choose between, oh, I'm gonna jump out, I'm gonna dash forward. It's a very, very easy way to add in those extra hits instead of being like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Now I've lost my turn. We're back at neutral, and I have to play neutral again. Instead, you know, you can do all this kind of thing where you're staying on top of the opponent and you're figuring out all these different ways that you could potentially be opening them up, including dash up throws, which is still one of my favorite moves and will hit everybody online forever. Anyway, so Mai has that tool, right, which is incredibly good and incredibly specific to Mai. The other cool thing about Mai is that when she has a hard knockdown, she has an incredibly easy safe jumps. Let's see if I can. So like her safe jump on Mai is just jump C. And what I mean by that is that the timing of the attack just lets you block any DPs that come out afterwards, because you can do this attack and you land blocking, right? So even if you whiff it entirely, by the time that you are coming to the ground, you can go straight into blocking. So if you get a hard knockdown on somebody, you can cover your jump in with this. And now you've got this timing, you've thrown out this big attack that looks very punishable. And if they press a button, you can get them afterwards. Let's see, what other cool things does Mai have? Oh yeah, so jump cancels with Mai, right? This is probably one of the easiest, funniest things to do with people with Mai is this, right? Like there is a huge gap here, but if you're playing against someone who doesn't have a DP, this is the silliest, most basic form of pressure that I can think of, because 2C is jump cancelable and jump C is a huge button, right? This is the easiest way to think about basic pressure, because it's just so ridiculous, right? It's not efficient. People can beat it with DPs, just like you could beat a lot of different pressure. But between the idea of like, okay, I can dash cancel things whenever I want to, I can do all this, and I can come in for the jump cancels. It gives you a lot of tools to work with, more so than just like, okay, oh no, he started blocking. What do I do? Oh, I just do the rest of it. There's always more things that you can do. Instant dash C cross up. I like that. It's good. So Mai's really good for that. Let's go over this real quick with one more character.
Please select your character.
Should we do a Jubei? We should probably do it with Jubei. Because why not? It's Jubei, right? I want to do this quick though, because I do actually want to play tonight, because I believe in the playing. The playing is important. Alright, so let's see. Jubei. Actually don't know any good combos for this guy. Alright, but there's the example of like, let's say all we know is this, right? This, to go over setup pressure, right? Like let's say that we get this throw on Ragna. Right? Looks like we can just combo into basics from here. So, oh, we can't do that though. Right? We get this knockdown. What do? We throw in the fireball. The fireball is going to force Ragna to react in some way that he normally wouldn't want to. So even if this is the only combo that we know, we can still throw out this fireball, and now Ragna's got to deal with that as we come back in to continue pressuring the opponent. It's not super ideal. Jubei is one of those characters that has a crap load of corner carry. So sometimes mid-screen, if you can't get them to the corner and get the rest of the combo, it's not so great. But in the event that you do hit someone really far away, you can use that as your setup tool. For Jubei, he's got this button, which is +2 on block, which is ridiculous, right? So you're going to see a lot of people doing little micro dash pressures with him. We're going to talk about micro dash pressure here at the very end. As far as things that are jump cancelable on Jubei, he actually natively has a jump cancel built into 2C, which I think is like one of the most interesting things about him. At which point you can jump with him. You can do. Can you do the command dash? Yeah, you can do his command dash cross through nonsense, which is just ridiculous that that's a thing, and all sorts of other stuff. Okay, let's just look at this kind of thing. So Jubei actually has a pretty fun standing 5A. Doesn't hit low, but it's one of those ones that's spammable, right? Where you can do it really fast, or you can kind of delay it. And this is what I wanted to go over real quick, is like, see how Ragna is letting down his guard for like a second, right? For a second there, he's out of block stun, which means that if he's mashing buttons, the startup of a button is going to come through. Like, no matter how hard you mash buttons, you're never going to be able to get a move out if you're in block stun. So delaying it just a little bit like this, where instead of doing it at the most rapid speed, you're letting him have an opportunity to get out a button where he's just going to get immediately hit. This is the most basic idea of what stagger pressure is. And you might hear commentators talk about stagger pressure, talk about microdash pressure, and like, oh my goodness, that's so good. That's, the stuff that he's doing, and stagger pressure is so strong right now from this player. So what stagger pressure is basically having these really small gaps where you're staggering the opponent, and if they happen to press any button that's not a DP or a frame one invuln move, they're going to get hit. So when they say microdash pressure, what they basically mean is a combination of this, right? Now, microdash on Jubei is kind of hard to illustrate because if you dash normally with him, he runs through the character for a cross-up. So you actually have to dash and hold down toward in order to dash. So this is actually like, we're going to have to show this off with his 2A. But the idea here is that as soon as you start getting pushed out, right, you're having this little dash window where you're micro dashing up to close the gap. So instead of using a jump cancelable move or using some other tool in your arsenal to do it, all you're doing is you're dashing at this point where they might not expect you to be resetting your pressure, right? Because normally a block string on Jubei looks kind of like this, right? We're going to go up, we're going to do this, we're going to do these buttons, and then we're going to end in some unsafe special in hopes that it mixes up the opponent, right? Because he can go high or he can go low at the end of his block string, which makes him dangerous, but it also makes it there's also lower damage at that point. So we want to open up the opponent early, right? So we're doing all this kind of thing instead of going into the block string that everybody's familiar with. That's, you know, also our combo. Instead, what we do is we stop early, we stop here, and then we dash up forward. And we find these different points to do this, where we're dashing forward to close the distance so that we can keep pressure up on the opponent. Now, this is inherently dangerous in and of itself. A lot of beginners feel like stagger pressure is just something that you can't deal with, right? Like, this guy, he just runs up to me, he's constantly pressing buttons. If I try to do anything back, I get hit, man. I can't do anything about it. And usually that's just because what they're doing is too fast for any button that you're trying to throw out. If you are trying to beat stagger pressure, you can beat it with DPs, so long as they're frame one invuln. You can beat them with overdrive. If it's long range stagger like Jubei's, right, where he might be doing this stuff, like sometimes you can beat it with 2A or 5A if you have a 5 or 6 frame button. Sometimes you can beat it with an 8 frame button. It all kind of depends, but it's inherently dangerous as far as doing this or trying to respond to it, and that's part of where you kind of have to have the mix-ups, right? Like if I come in and I do stagger pressure the same way every time, no matter what, I'm gonna eventually eat a DP or a super, or somebody's gonna overdrive through me or what have you. But it's definitely a really good tool. Now, because it has these micro dashes involved and these different points of reset, this is something that's a little bit more advanced, a little bit more difficult to do, something that you don't have to try to incorporate immediately, but just know that eventually this is something that you're gonna, I've done this too, I'm still trying to incorporate this into my own play, is you're gonna come in a training room, you're gonna set somebody to block, and you're gonna figure out like, okay, how quickly can I dash out of 2B? Okay, it seems like the round right there, right? 2B, okay. Alright, I'm back on top of him. Alright, so that's about all that I had to talk about as far as pressure is concerned in BlazBlue. It is a little bit more of a fuzzy topic compared to the approaching guide that I just did recently, but it's something I wanted to cover because it's something I see a lot of beginners struggle with, and it's something that is somewhat easy to learn. It is somewhat character specific, but it's definitely something you should take the time to train. It'll totally help you out a ton in any of the matches or games that you're playing. And it's definitely a good skill to pick up. Eventually, in the near future, I still want to do a bunch of guides, something that's more in-depth on Oki. I want to do one on anti-airing. There's a few other core kind of conceptual ones that I want to go over as well, so keep an eye out for that. If you guys do have any suggestions for things you'd like to see soon, do let me know. I'm always looking for that kind of input from the people who watch my videos. And I'm going to get back to the rest of the stream now because I think some people are itching to play, and so am I. Alright, let's turn Twitch chat back on. Where'd you go, Twitch chat? Where did it go? Twitch chat, please! Little button. Whew.